We are less than 1 week away from the 2025 NFL Draft, and today we are going to be looking at the 10 prospects that I think are starting to get a little bit overhyped. Now, I do want to preface this. I am not saying that these guys are bad players. I think a lot of these guys could go on to have successful careers, but I do worry about where they are currently projected on the consensus boards. So leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, check out my Patreon to see where I have all of these players on my big board and my positional rankings. It's one of the best resources on the market. It's only $5 a month, and I've got some more exclusive stuff coming on Patreon here very, very soon. Stay tuned for draft day. Got a huge announcement for what we're going to be doing this summer that I can't wait to get into. But I don't want to waste any more of your guys' time. Let's take a look at the 10 prospects that I think are most overrated right now. We're going to start this off with a wide receiver from Ole Miss, and that's going to be Trey Harris. Like I said, I do want to preface this by saying I don't think Trey Harris is a bad player. I like some of the things Trey Harris can do. He's 6'2", 205. He's got a really good frame. He's got long arms, big hands. He's got good speed in the open field. I know he ran a 4.54, but for that size, it's pretty good. I worry about just the offense that Ole Miss runs, and I had similar concerns about Jonathan Mingo when he was coming out of Ole Miss. Trey Harris, to me, the athleticism and size, it's great, but I don't think he is a guy that's going to be able to consistently win off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have a very consistent press release at this point in time, and he runs a very simplistic route tree. He runs a lot of verticals, might run a slant or two in there, but this is a guy that didn't run a lot of routes in college, and the routes that he did run, there weren't a lot of sudden movements. There weren't a lot of quick outs. There weren't anything there that really tested his short burst and long speed. He ran a 1.56 10-yard split. The explosiveness could be in question. He had 5 drops as well in 2024, which is a little bit concerning for me. And I do think he's going to need to improve against physicality. He had a 61.5% contested catch rate, really good number, but I think that can get better. This is a guy, though, that I worry about what his role is going to be because he averaged 17.2 yards per catch at Ole Miss this past season. Unless he's like strictly going to be a go ball receiver, that's not going to be his game. And I worry about that because I don't think you're drafting that guy in the top 75, which is currently where he's slotted to go. I think I've got Trey Harris in the 80s somewhere on my big board, so not too much of a difference. I just worry about what his role is going to look like at the NFL level because he wasn't asked to do a whole lot at Ole Miss. At number 9, that's where I'm going to have Jaden Blue out of Texas. Now, Blue is an interesting one because I don't think he's getting like a ton of love, but I've seen him get some praise at going relatively high because he ran a 4.38. I do worry about that. Doesn't have a ton of snaps, which for him is a good thing. He's incredibly fast. His long speed is tremendous. He's explosive, good jukes, good cuts, but he is a little bit smaller. He's 5'9", 196, but I think the number that worries me the most, 5 fumbles in 2024. This is a guy that was getting limited touches at Texas in a backfield with C.J. Baxter. I know he was hurt last year. And you got Trey Wisner. And this is a guy that the explosiveness, you want to play him. He gives you a little bit as a receiver as well. He had 36 receptions for 305 yards. I just don't know that I would take him in the first 4 to 5 rounds. I got a 6th round grade on Jaden Blue because I worry about the size, the frame, the power profile. But if he's going to put the football on the ground, he's going to get benched at the next level. There's just no other way around it. So that's really what it comes down to. Turnovers being a massive problem. I've seen him be talked about in the top 100 in some instances, and I just can't get behind that. I think both him and Jordan James, for me, are the 2 running backs that just get a little bit too much buzz. I'm a little bit lower on Jordan James. He's a little bit slower. However, I ended up going with Jaden Blue. He's a little bit higher on the consensus boards. I think he's slightly overrated in a very deep running back prospect and a very deep running back class, but I do think there is some potential there as a speed back if he can take care of the football. At number 8, that's where I'm going to have Jalen Rivers out of Miami. I'm pretty shocked that this is a top 150 guy on most of the consensus boards. Like I've said, I don't know that he is a bad offensive lineman. I wouldn't say that exactly. However, I'm a lot lower on him as a prospect. I currently have a 6th to a 7th round grade on him. And it starts with the athleticism. He's 6'6", 319. He ran a 5.29 with a 1.85 10-yard split, a 9-foot broad. He's not very explosive. The athleticism is not there. And I do think his tendencies to lunge really show up. As a run blocker, I really worry about him because I don't think he's got the most consistent angles, but I still think he's a better run blocker than he is a pass protector. His movement abilities aren't horrible, but I don't think they're elite. I don't think he's this elite mover to the second level. And this is a guy that many people think is going to be a guard. So if he's not super explosive or athletic, he's got some struggles as a run blocker. I just don't understand why he would go in the top 150. I know his season on paper, pretty productive. He only allowed 9 pressures this past season, playing left tackle. He's likely going to be a guard at the next level, and I just can't get behind him being this top 15 interior player at the next level because I do worry about the athleticism. I don't think he's a very consistent mover right now, and I just don't love everything that he does as a run blocker. So Jalen Rivers is a guy I'm a lot lower on than the consensus. I think he's a little bit overrated in this draft class. Another offensive lineman that I think is a little bit overrated is, it says Jalon Walker. This is Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia. Fairchild's a really interesting one because he's a guy that I've seen get a lot of praise as like an early 4th round guy. I've got a 6th round grade on Dylan Fairchild, and I never really understood the hype. He's not the most explosive, 29.5-inch vertical, 9.3 on the broad jump. He had a pretty productive season, allowed just 9 pressures this past season. But again, he was a guy that I didn't think was the most polished. Plays a little bit high in terms of his pad level. He just seems to get lost in the run game at times, particularly when moving. He just struggled on runs and screens, didn't know who to block, looks completely out of control. He does give you some versatility. I think he's a really good help blocker on the inside. His footwork is solid in pass protection, but I do think he's just a guy that he's a little bit more raw than I think many people want to believe. He's going to need to improve as a run blocker. He's not the greatest athlete in the world. He can pull relatively well, but I don't think he's this elite athlete. He's just not a guy that I'm particularly high on, especially in the 4th or 5th round. Now, if we get a little bit past that, I think I could get on board with it, but I do have some concerns about his pad level. Also, just as a guy that he hasn't played a ton. He was kind of a rotational guy for Georgia in 2023. He did step up in a big way for them in 2024, but I do have some concerns about what he's going to be at the next level. So I got Dylan Fairchild at number 7. I apologize for Jalon Walker being the name. You'll see his name later on in this video. At number 6 now, that's where I'm going to have Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M. I think Turner's a fine player. He's a top 75 guy on the consensus boards. That's just a bit rich for my blood. I currently have, where do I have him on my board? I currently have Shamar Turner around the 4th to 5th round range, around the number 150 player. So I'm a little bit lower on him than the consensus. He's 6'3", 290. He just is a guy that I wanted to see test. I wanted to see participate at the Senior Bowl, and we just didn't see that. He's got versatility. He played edge last season for A&M. They moved him inside this year. He's got a good power profile. I do like that about him, and I like his run defense. He's just really raw as a pass rusher, too reliant on his traits. He wants to win with more of his power, and I don't think he's a great explosive athlete. He doesn't convert speed to power very well. He's not super explosive. I think the versatility is the reason people are going to draft him pretty high, but he's not super quick. I don't think he's the most fluid. I think he plays out of control at times, particularly as a run defender. And so I do worry about that. This is also a guy that has a ton of missed tackles on tape, 23.3% missed tackle rate, only a 6.2% pass rush win rate. there's just some concerns that I have, and I do think he could be a guy that is drafted high because of the traits, but he just never ends up panning out at the next level because he doesn't really have a go-to move in his arsenal. Wants to win a lot with power, wants to win a lot with, just bull rush, and I just don't think that's going to slide. I want to see some more finesse, some more hand usage in there, and I just don't think he's got that in his game right now. And so I wouldn't take him in the top 100 picks. He probably will sneak into the top 100, but I just can't get there with him. That's why I got Shamar Turner on this list. At number 5, that's where I'm going to have Savion Williams out of TCU. I still have Savion Williams as a top 20 receiver in the class, but he is currently the number 77 player on the consensus boards. And even with Savion Williams being a top 20 receiver on my board, I have closer to a 4th round grade on him. For one, I was a little bit underwhelmed with his athletic testing because on tape, that's kind of what you're buying into with Savion Williams. This is an absolute freak. He's 6'3", 222 pounds, 32.5-inch arms, a guy that just moves better than anybody you've ever seen for his size, but a guy that ran a 4.48, it just doesn't add up. I think he's a little bit faster than what he tested at. There's just a lot of concerns. One, is he a running back or is he a receiver? Because TCU really likes to use him out of the backfield. I don't know what that's going to look like. I think that's where he's at his best, but there's still question marks there. We'll just get right into it. As a receiver, there's a lot of things he's going to need to improve on. One, I don't think he's the greatest route runner in the world. He is not a great guy at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have a great press release. I don't think he's a guy that creates a ton of separation. He can stop and go on a dime, but he's not a great separator at the wide receiver position. So you're not getting a lot there. Now, he has an 85.7% contested catch rate, which is great, but he also is a guy that has some of the worst hands you will see. 7 drops in 2024. And again, a guy that just never was able to carve out a consistent role for himself at TCU. He's been with this team for about 4 or 5 seasons, and he just never really was able to separate himself as being the guy there. So a lot of concerns I have about Williams as a wide receiver. Now, if we're using him as a running back, I think with his power, his speed, I think he can be a really nice player. But if you're drafting him to be a receiver for you, I think he could be in for a rough road because there are a lot of inconsistencies in his game. He's not a great separator, and he's got really bad hands for the position. I wouldn't take him in the top 100 as a result of that. At number 4, I got Denzel Burke. Now, I was a lot lower on Denzel Burke coming into the year. I was a lot lower on Denzel Burke throughout the year. And I'll give myself a slight pat on the back here. It's looking like my initial evaluation of Denzel Burke is kind of where the rest of the league is going to end up. He's slipped down big boards significantly. One, just not the best season in the world for him. He had some major struggles this past season. 58.4 man grade per PFF, allowed receptions on 72.3% of the times he was targeted. 413 yards, only 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups on the year. Man, the size is there. He's 5'11", 186. I think he's got good arm length. But his physicality is just lacking. He has not got very many. He doesn't show punch at the line of scrimmage. He's not very physical and press. I think his footwork is incredibly choppy. He gets very flat-footed, causing him to get beat. I don't think he's the fastest guy in the world either. He ran a 4.48. Didn't love that. I think he plays too far back in zone. And I just don't think he's going to be a great corner at the next level because I really value corners that are fluid, that have the quick trigger release. Their footwork is sound. I don't think Burke has the best footwork. And there were a lot of times where he was caught flat-footed and was completely burned off the line of scrimmage. That's going to have to get better for him. It just is. I don't think he's got that in his game. He's not physical, and I just don't love that. Those are the things I value in corners. I have a 5th round grade on Denzel Burke. He'll probably go higher than this. I just can't get there with him. And so that's why I got Burke at number 4. My next 3 are going to be controversial. I understand. But my number 3 guy is JT Tuimoloau. I had a comment. I don't have a top 100 grade on JT Tuimoloau. Now, I'll say this. I think Tuimoloau brings you a high floor in run defense. one of the better run defending edge rushers in the entire draft class. I think immediately out the gate, he's going to be a contributor there. It's what he does as a pass rusher that really concerns me. And it's weird because if you asked me coming into the year, how do you feel about Tuimoloau? I was like, I think he's raw, but I think he's got explosiveness and the ability to really develop. I don't think that's there anymore. His athleticism seems to be way down in 2024 from where it was in 2023. He doesn't have a lot of bend. He's really tight in his lower half. So I don't know that he's going to be able to consistently win with athleticism. And if you can't win with athleticism, you've got to be able to win with some more finesse. And he just does not have it. He is a guy that really only has a bull rush that he can consistently utilize. He'll show a nice swipe on occasion, but those instances are few and far between. When he was going up against more bigger and powerful offensive linemen, he was stonewalled. He was a guy that was not able to consistently get past offensive linemen. He's not super explosive. And yeah, he had a good season, but only a 12.4% win rate. That's a little bit low for me. I want to see that number get higher. I just have a lot of concerns about his athletic profile, how he's going to win at the next level with his hands. Can he be a consistent pass rusher? And I just don't think he can, at least at this point. Now, I could be very wrong on this, but I just do worry about that for Tuimoloau. I've got him at number 3. At number 2, that's where I'm going to have Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss. Man, I loved Jaxson Dart coming into the year. I thought Dart was going to be in for a big year. I just went back and watched it, and I was left underwhelmed by what Jaxson Dart did this year. I know that Trey Harris missed a lot of time, but there's so many little things that I just don't think people talk about when we talk about Jaxson Dart. He's a guy that's mocked now pretty consistently in the first round. I've done it myself. I think he probably goes in the first round. I would not take him inside the first round. I think he could go in the second. I currently have him outside my top 100. He is a guy that I really worry about. Can he be a consistent player in an offense that is not predetermined? Ole Miss runs a lot of predetermined sets. He knows where he's going with the ball immediately, and he doesn't really read defenses very well. That's kind of the offense. It's quick outs. He's throwing a go ball, or he's throwing a slant across the middle. It's kind of like it's a little bit like the Tennessee offense, but, a little bit less spread out. He doesn't go through his progressions very well at all. He's a one-read quarterback, stays on his man for way too long, plays in a really quarterback-friendly system, and when he is forced to read defenses, he struggles. There are instances on tape where the linebacker's just sitting there and he just doesn't see the linebacker lurking. He misses the safety lurking. I don't think he's got the greatest football IQ when throwing into coverage. He throws the ball into double coverage a lot. He really tries to force it into tight windows. He doesn't slide as a runner. And while I like the swagger that Dart plays with, I think he's got good arm talent. He's not a quarterback that you're going to be able to draft and start right away, or else I think it's going to be a disaster for him in his career. He's a little bit smaller. He's like 6'1", 220. I don't love that size for him. I think he's probably a little bit smaller than that. There's just some concerns I have with him at the next level, particularly stemming from his ability to read a defense and the offense that he comes from. If he can prove that wrong, I think he can be a solid player, but he's definitely not a guy I would touch with a first-round pick. And at number 1, I've got Jalon Walker. Walker's a guy I've got a first to a second-round grade on. I cannot get behind the conversations that this is a guy that should be taken inside the top 5, inside the top 10. I just can't get there. I have Jalon Walker as my number 41 overall prospect in the draft class. He is a guy, I've heard people say, oh, Jalon Walker, he's this physical specimen. No, he's 6'1", 243. He has 32-inch arms, which are very short for the edge rusher position. So now, I explained this in my top 100 video. I worry about what his role is going to be at the next level, right? Because if you play him as an edge rusher, he's probably going to have to be a stand-up edge because he's a guy that I don't think has very many pass rush moves. He wins strictly off his athleticism, his bend, and his explosiveness. That's really all he wins with right now. Secondly, he's not a guy that I think could play with his hand in the dirt. He's not very powerful. He got bullied by more powerful offensive linemen and completely stonewalled. And he just doesn't have the pass rush moves to win with his hand in the dirt. So you're probably playing him off the ball in a more off-ball linebacker role. And maybe you run a 3-4 and he's an outside linebacker. That's great. Still have concerns about that for him. Or you're like, well, we'll play him as a weak side linebacker at the next level and utilize him as a blitzer, which is probably his best role at the next level, if I'm being completely honest. I think he does bring you good blitzing upside, and where he was at his best as a pass rusher was when he was dialed up as a blitzer. The issue I have with that is he's so not great in coverage, that's putting it nicely, that I don't know that you can do that, because he's going to have to cover in that weak side role more often than not. And if he can't do that, there's going to be open people all around. I think people are going to talk about his versatility to play anywhere, but I don't think he's great anywhere. And that's my issue with him. I think he's a fine player, and I would bet on him in the back half of the first round because of the traits. He's not a guy I would take in the top 10, though. He's just not there for me. I'm a lot lower on him than consensus, and I think he's the most overrated player in this draft class. Who do you guys think is getting a little bit too much praise? I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.